Hi there, I'm Kylie Allen from Hello Media.
And I'm Jenni Walk from Elephant in the Room Consulting, and you're tuning into Bite-Sized Business Live Podcast, the show that helps business owners get clarity and insight to grow their dream business.
Whether you're launching, ready to scale, or figuring out what's next, we discuss the nitty-gritty, the hard bits, the opportunities, and the behind the scenes, and share how we've grown our own companies and helped others do the same.
We're glad you're here. Good morning, everyone. This is Jenni Walk from Elephant in the Room Consulting, and I've got my digital BFF, Kylie Allen from Hello Media, and you're tuning into Bite-Sized Business Podcast, the podcast that helps you grow your dream business. How are you today, Kylie?
Doing great, Jenni. What about you?
I'm doing well. I got a bit bamboozled there because just before we went live, we were having a conversation about The Voice this weekend, weren't we?
We sure were, Jenni. I'm very passionate about it.
And what was interesting, and I actually am really reflecting, which is why I want to share it, is that for me, it's an incredibly important decision, and I haven't been very vocal or public on it other than our podcast and a couple of posts. And it's just taken me a moment to think of why that is. And I kind of wish, in some respects, I think that I want people to be, clever and intelligent and not make stupid assumptions on things that people are saying, and not look at the or the, as you said, the racists and the liars and the haters who are just going to make up stuff to make for sound bites and for likes on socials. And people are believing a lot of that crap. And I think I was hoping that we would get past that. I was hoping that as a society, we were a little bit more mature than that. And I'm realizing and reflecting on that conversation that that's probably not the case, because that's why those sound bites get sound bites, right? And that's why they get the likes, because they're targeting and triggering people in a way they know will influence their decision. And so I think as of today, it's about, you are right when you're saying to me, it's about time that anyone who is passionate about it, who is interested in wanting to make sure an informed decision is made on the weekend, that we actually start sharing some of those, so that information out now in the last week as we lead into the run into the referendum on Saturday.
I agree, Jenni, and I really think that it's not like you and I right now are sitting here talking politics. What we're actually talking about is what is right and what's fair. And I think the actual truth is that we shouldn't even be voting on this at all. It's similar where we were voting on gay marriage. It's got nothing to do with us. It's not going to affect us in any way, and it has nothing to do with us. And I feel the same way about this. So, but the reality is we are given the opportunity to vote, so therefore we need to get it right. And it'll be just such a horrible, horrible slap in the face for all First Nations people, you included, if it doesn't go through, and I will be deeply upset. But you probably have noticed the world is watching. So they're responding to some of the horrible hate stuff that's being said, and it's really reflecting terribly on Australia.
I would agree so much on that, is that we often think that we're in this little bubble, don't we, in Australia? It's like, oh, what we do here isn't going to impact or affect anybody, but it really does. And it demonstrates our values, it demonstrates how we want to show up in the world. And to your point that the referendum, it's really only going to impact Aboriginal and Torres Islander people, and that's what this kind of noise is really. I'm struggling with a lot at the moment. Is the noise is saying it's going to make all these other changes and influence other aspects of legislation and policy, but it's not. It's only in relation to policies and legislation that relate to Aboriginal and Torres Islander people. If you are not an Aboriginal or Torres Islander person, this is not going to affect you. It is not going to have a right to veto. It's not going to create another layer of government. It's not going to add extra bureaucracy. It's simply providing a voice and a framework for people to share their stories. There are already those people. They just currently get paid to do it, paid lots of money to be the politiker and to be the influencer and to be that kind of voice. And we see that all the time. People standing up and voting with a particular party or voting against a legislation because they're paid to do that. And that's what people forget. The people who are saying, don't do this, they're saying that in most cases because they're going to lose their opportunity to be able to be that point of influence instead of having the community being influenced. And so I think that's the piece that I really struggle with in all the narrative. And I was just hoping that that in Australia we would rise above that, because we are clever enough as a nation, as a society, and we should be able to see through all of that rubbish and all of those kind of, just the shade that's being thrown everywhere, and see what it is. This is what it is. It's got nothing to do with general policy, general legislation, taxes, anything else. We're not getting free stuff. It doesn't make us wealthier. We're not going to get influence in a bucket of money that we do things with. None of that's happening. It's just a voice for us to be able to share impact and outcomes of policy. That's it.
It's so extraordinary. The thing that probably disturbs me the most is this: if you don't know, say no. Oh. Well, that is 100% not true. It's if you don't know, then go and find out. It's not that hard. There's so many incredible people out there sharing amazing content about it that it's really not hard to find out. And
that's basically saying, if you're ignorant, stay ignorant. It's okay, people. We're happy to be. And you know what? Have a think who those people who are saying that. They're the people who want you to be ignorant. They want you to be ill-informed, because then they control your narrative. They have the power. That's what you're missing. For those who are saying, oh, I don't know, so I'm going to vote no, then, as you say, pick up a book, open the internet, read it. There's like so much information available. You know what? Go to the aec.gov.au website that has the cases and the facts there. Go to the voice.gov.au that have the facts of the case, the unbiased, agnostic, if you like, facts of what it is and what it isn't. Don't go to the political party's website. Don't look at their social media. Just look at those 2 or 3 spaces that have the actual information about what it is and what it isn't. Read that and then make your decision. Don't base it on some person who is going to lose their power and want to control yours.
So good. And Jenni, the amount of stuff I'm seeing where people are sharing, Indigenous elders all voting no, et cetera, would you be happy to share from your perspective in your family and the Indigenous elders that you know and are involved with?
I have not met an elder that's saying no, put it that way. I've been very lucky over the last 6 months to be working with a client and delivering. We did 25 cultural awareness sessions with 18 different traditional owner groups across New South Wales. And every single person that I spoke to from community were wanting a yes vote. And that's just within New South Wales. That's not here in Queensland. When I'm working here in Queensland, every individual that I've spoken to here, I was at a networking event on Tuesday with 25 or 30 Indigenous business owners and a couple of elders there. Everybody is voting yes that I'm speaking to. And that's not just lip service saying I'm going to vote yes and then behind the scenes vote no. They are all voting yes. They all recognize this is an opportunity for change. This is not it's like saying everybody's blonde. You know what? No, they're not. But if I give you a sample of 100 people from Sweden, they probably will be. But that doesn't mean the world is blonde, people. It doesn't mean, don't take this kind of tiny sample. And, and if I went to a community and said, hey, by the way, this is bad things going to happen. Do you think this is good or not? They're going to say no, but don't take that out of context. Be mindful that are you listening to the whole conversation that was had with that elder about what it is and what it isn't? You're talking to elders in Central Queensland, Central Australia, Central and Western Australia, who were told, I'm sure, lots of things. And the only soundbite that they captured for socials was the one that they said, no, this doesn't mean anything to us. But what the context of that is, look at the whole article, look at the whole conversation. They don't show that. Why? Because it's possibly not the whole truth. And remember that. We're only sharing partial truths everywhere. That's my view anyway.
So true. And thank you for sharing. I just feel like this last week that we've got to go, it's just fraught with a lot of emotion due to misinformation and all that kind of stuff. So I'll just leave it with, if you don't know, don't vote no. Go and find out on the 100%. Website that Jenni suggested.
Yeah, 100%. But today, and it's interesting because today we're talking about relationships, right? We're talking about how to build and maintain relationships. And I'm going to say something a little controversial. In some respects, what we're seeing with some of the campaigns that are out at the moment is actually about how that individual, that organization is choosing to maintain control over their stakeholders and their relationships. They're using influence and power to control the narrative. And that's a really kind of how to maintain relationships for evil or for negative outcomes, as opposed to saying, when we're looking at in business, when we're looking at building relationships, it's really out about saying, understanding how we come together and share information and maintain connection, but still not overrun any individual's voices. It's still giving them space. But I think one of the most important things about building relationships is that understanding each other, isn't it?
It sure is. And Jenni, I think it's really important to bring up our brand voice, our brand words, and what opinions our brand or our business has. And the reason I think that's so important is, I know we've talked before where I chose in my business to not be talking about the pandemic, for example. I knew that there was a lot of people on either side. Everyone's got their own ideas. I was happy to share what was going on for my family because, with my husband's extremely compromised. So therefore we were making decisions based on that. But I really felt that a lot of those discussions didn't really need to be in my business. No. However, this discussion on The Voice, I'm super proud to put my hand up and say yes. And I don't feel like I'm getting political or getting involved. I'm actually just showing me as the owner of this business as a decent human.
Yep.
And so I think when we all consider what our own voices are saying or what our business voice is saying, we really need to look at how that resonates with other people or how it impacts other people.
100%, because we often forget that relationships isn't just about what we do, is it? It's about the whole experience. And we've been talking about this over the last couple of months, that need to understand the whole aspect of your business, your customer journey, your brand identity, and your relationships are often dependent not just on what you do in a relationship, but how you communicate with them on emails, on your overall brand, and the voice and the values that you project actually help build that relationship. Because ultimately, we like to be around people who are like us on some level. That doesn't mean look the same, act the same all the time, but there has to be an alignment in some respects, whether it's on values, whether it's on outcomes or impact that you want to do, or in fact, it's the way that you work. Those things is why we end up sticking and staying with people. That's my view anyway. That's why we stick and stay with people. So having that connection and understanding and making sure your brand voice is speaking to your customers or community in the right way is critical for building long-term relationships.
Absolutely, isn't it just? And so in terms of sharing the difficult topics, I have got a client at the moment who we feel very, very, very different on every single issue, really. But we actually have a mutual appreciation for each other. And so it works. We're quite open about it. We don't delve into it in a big way, but I know that she shares some stuff on her socials that kind of repel me, but it's not enough that it's going to make me unfollow or unfriend, etc. Whereas others I've seen doing it who would be more just like colleagues rather than they've never been a client or anything, what they're putting out there absolutely is making me want to even go so far as to block them.
Yeah, and we don't think about that in this concept of relationships because people are looking at this in isolation, aren't they? I'm just talking about the referendum. It's nothing else, just the referendum. So it doesn't matter that it's out of kilter or out of sync to how I normally engage or normally act, because this is just one issue. But it's the one issue and it's those individual issues that create that whole understanding and structure around how people connect with you. And it only takes, and we know this, we've said it on social, it only takes one bad viral kind of video for you to lose all your trust, lose all your respect. So how you're communicating and making sure that's aligned with you and aligned with people that you want to engage with. And it goes to that conversation we talk around, communicating about, educating rather than selling with people. And we talk about that, and it's one of the last tips on building a relationship, but in this I think we bring it early, that edutainment idea is actually there's some responsibility with that. It's not just entertaining people with anything and everything to get a soundbite. It's making sure that it aligns with what you're doing. So that edutainment idea of saying, I'm going to share something that's important to me, that's important to you, or that I want you to be aware of, but I'm going to do it in a way that still aligns with who I am. So when we move on to the next campaign, it doesn't feel like two different voices talking to you.
Absolutely. So yesterday I shared a post that would be triggering for some, because there's many people out there who are big fans of Temu because it's cheap. I'm a massive non-fan of Temu. I will never have the app on my phone. I'm very aware that, we're being tracked in many different ways. And, mostly I feel like, well, I've really got nothing to hide. However, to do with a particular government that it's linked with, et cetera, I've got no interest in being involved with that. So yesterday up on my socials came this amazing video from this woman that I've been following for a long time that creates all these beautiful designs. And she was at this festival, and all of a sudden, somebody walked past her with a shirt and pants on in a fabric that she'd designed. And she had put it out there herself as a blanket and a few other bits and pieces. And, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears goes into painting that, then, of course, turning it into products. Then to see it as a shirt and shorts, literally identical. So she stopped and had a chat with him, and he'd bought it from Temu. So then she did a little search and found hundreds and hundreds of things out there using her design. So, of course, what she got to stand on, really, it's a tragic situation. But I loved that she did this video. It was clearly very emotional for her. And then there's been a lot of us sharing it. But since then, I've received so many messages from other designers who do surface pattern design like she does. So one of my clients, for example, designs, let's just say this, which is Casey Rainbow. She's the artist of this, but the dress is from Proud Poppy. So the same as for my client, Sweet Art by Jenni. She makes these beautiful, beautiful paintings, patterns, et cetera, and then people buy them from her to put on their products. And that's the right way to go about doing it, is licensing these beautiful artworks. But to go, and if a company like Temu to go and do that is just tragedy. But the way that it's brought that industry together to support her is really, really beautiful. So yes, I was sharing something that's very divisive, because a lot of people really, as I said, just want the cheapest option. But I feel so strongly that it's just so wrong. So yeah, I feel in terms of how we're showing up as a brand, how we're sharing our voice, how we're showing support for others is incredibly powerful.
I think also with that, what that says to me as a potential client is that you're going to go to bat for me, right? And this is part of that conversation when we talk about our brand voice and how we're showing up. If you're willing to stand up and say, this is wrong and this is one of my clients and this is not okay, then that says to other clients, they'll do that for me. They will stand with me and they'll align with me as long as what I'm doing is right. And that there's that goes back to that conversation around value alignment. And we're talking about the same we're walking on the same path together. If you have that and your clients see you supporting others, that sends a really clear message that you're going to support them as well, that you're not picking and choosing which clients, it's all of the clients that you're supporting. And so that sort of offering help and demonstrating help very early on in that relationship is for some extent, it's a lead generation, right? If we're talking from a purely business step away from the heart perspective, it's a lead generation. If all you're doing is saying, I'm here to support the businesses I work with. And if you want to be supported, come and work with me. You haven't said any of that. But that's actually what you're demonstrating. And so when we're talking about maintaining a relationship or building a relationship, we talk about know, like, and trust. This is going straight to, I may not know who you are, but I'm already starting to trust you because you're actually showing up in a different way. And I think that's really clever. And it's how you always talk about leveraging technology and that kind of next piece to say, when you've got activities like that, you want to share your voice or you want to share information or give that tip. And let's get really not stepping away from the edutainment and say, hey, I'm going to actually share a PDF or share a tip or give you 5 ways to, improve your business or improve your digital footprint. Then we start to leverage technology, and that's what you did. You shared the post. You made sure the community was in it. She's used that. She's leveraging the digital platforms to be able to share her message and connect with broader communities, because that's going to say, hey, I'm not going to buy off Temu. I want to buy off you. So you get that royalty. I'm going to buy off someone that you license with. So we start to leverage technology not only to gain supporters and gain engagement, but to maintain that connection.
For sure. And why is it seen by so many that it's okay to steal people's art, but it's not okay to go into a shop and steal a TV? You know, it's just extraordinary what's going on out there, and it's getting harder and harder. And I'm really watching closely how it's evolving with AI at the moment. And whoa, there's some big stuff happening behind the scenes, because of course every bit that's coming in from ChatGPT, etc., is coming from somewhere, from someone's work, and it's not being acknowledged.
It's a really good point in terms of that kind of copyright or licensing model, and it has I guess it's at the moment we're still in an early phase. I know the internet's been around about 20 years, or give or take now, 25 years probably, but we're still in a very early phase. It's still a very early life cycle as a if you think 25 years is not, you think a 25-year-old person, would you think that they know everything? No, they don't. And so you don't expect but we expect the internet to kind of have everything sorted out, and the web to have it all sorted out, but it isn't. It's still really young as an industry and as a platform, if we think about it. And some of those things that are coming off the back of it haven't even made their first steps yet, right? They're like, so we're still trying to work those things out. So it's one of those risks. I had a client of mine talk about putting their content online, and should they actually, develop their online platform and how they do that. And I said, that's fine, but you do have to remember, as soon as you make a digital course, you only need one person to purchase it and they can reproduce it. And you just need to know that that's going to happen. And so it's like, well, how do we stop that? How do we stop people downloading it and taking our content? And the reality is, at the moment, you can't. But you can make yourself unique enough, and you can make yourself different enough so that if people use your content, they know that it's not, they know that there's another source that perhaps isn't that individual. And I think that's where like artwork becomes so great, right? We know that artwork does not exist in Temu. We know it's come from somewhere. And highlighting the fact that, hey, if you want to buy, a back scratcher from Temu, that's fine, but maybe don't look at digital artwork. Maybe don't look at artwork. Anything that has some creative element in it at one end is something that we need to start being really mindful of. And I completely agree with you there.
Yeah, it's so interesting, isn't it? So again, it's showing who we are as a business, or who we are as the owner behind the business, when we stand up and put our voice to something. Definitely. So I love how you brought up about the edutaining piece. I think that's so important, because one thing that I try and do is then bring some humour into it, not necessarily of the topic we've just been talking about, but certainly, for example, when it comes to the voice, the people that have posted with a little bit of humour or done videos with it, they're the ones that get more engagement, because when it's a big topic or a hard topic, then it doesn't necessarily mean it needs to be a heavy topic and heavy to watch it. So I for one, like it when things are presented to me in a simple, easy, light way, because I can always click through and read a big thing in a blog post or an article if I want to. But if I'm just absorbing reels, for example, on my newsfeed, then if they're a little bit edutaining, that for me is way better than hardcore bogged down. Yeah.
I also think it's around, when we talk about edutainment, and we use that term a lot, so that's educating and entertaining at the same time, it allows us to offer help in a way that's accessible for everybody. It's actually, particularly if you have that humor and your favorite word, uncomplify it, and let's make it really simple and accessible for everybody. It means that also you're sharing knowledge, you're sharing a little bit about what you do, and helping people along the way. And so relationships is not just about building strong relationships in business, isn't just about a financial exchange. And I know a lot of people who I engage with, and I've a funny anecdote about a guy who was ringing me telling me that, how everyone was taking his content, and he wanted to talk with me about how he can, work more effectively so people don't keep asking him for advice. But the irony was, he's wanting to book time with me for free so I could give him my coaching, so I could show him, because he hadn't actually recognized that him calling me and saying, hey, tell me how I can fix this and how I can stop people, using my knowledge and understanding to influence them. I'm like, wow, okay. He hasn't realized it, because he's only sitting in that financial mindset. He's only sitting in money returns. If he took a step back and said, hey, I want to find a way to share my content and grow, if he actually gave some information away and just a bite-sized piece, people are going to then pay him for the balance of it. And he hasn't quite learned that yet. And so I love working with businesses and people who say, okay, that's cool, but let's just think about what you're doing. offer help, share, engage, build rapport with somebody first, show there's value in a relationship, because ultimately we are all time poor, we're all busy, we're all doing things, whether you use overwhelmed, productive, busy, whatever word you want to use. But ultimately, there needs to be some value exchange in a relationship. Now, that doesn't have to be financial. It doesn't even have, it can be a range of things. What value means to you is different, but there has to be an exchange. So I've got to give you something in order to for you to give me time, a click, or ultimately purchase and work with me. But so and I think we forget that sometimes when we're in a relationship building phase. We think I'm going to put something out and then you're just going to give me lots of stuff. You're going to come and work with me. But there has to be an exchange.
Absolutely. That's, again, bringing up that know, like, and trust thing, right? We've got to see you out there first, decide that we actually resonate with you in some way. Then we've got to see those trust pieces, like getting to see some reviews from people, testimonials, people saying what they've got from being with you, or even seeing what I might have got from working with you. So, yeah, so important.
I think one of the last pieces that we sometimes forget to talk about when we're talking about building relationships, particularly because we're at that know, like, and trust phase of the kind of the cycle, is that feedback piece. And you just mentioned it with reviews. Getting feedback isn't just about posting reviews. It's also about you understanding what's resonating. So when you look at your metrics, when you're looking to see how well a post is going and how what the click rate through, or the share rate, or whatever metrics you're using for success for your business, that's one form of feedback. But actually getting feedback from your clients to say, hey, how's that going? What's working for you? Having those little check-ins with your loyal customers or your loyal partners is so important to make sure that you have an external sanity check. I have a colleague of mine who I use who's not part of the business, because I know everybody who works within my team and within our kind of circle, we all love each other. Like, we kind of have love bombs all day and every day, but sometimes we forget we need someone who's like, what the heck does that mean? Like, we need an external person to give us that feedback so that we're like, okay, maybe I'm kind of drinking my own Kool-Aid at the moment and I need to take a step back and what is the actual impact, right? And I think that feedback piece is so important, from customers, from clients, from people that you trust, but also people who sit outside your circle.
I agree. We use Jot forms, sometimes Google forms, to just put surveys together. And what we do, our meetup, which happens once a month for Positive, Passionate Businesswomen, after every single meetup, we send out a little feedback form, and it says things like, what did you like most about it? What would you like to see in future meetups? What topics would you like, et cetera, et cetera. And it's such a great way to and then there's a little bit that they can tick if they agree to some of that being used in our marketing promotions. So such a good way to really hear from people what they're loving and what they're not loving. And we make sure we send it out straight away so that they're still in the zone of what they've just attended.
Exactly. And I think that's the piece. It's that timeliness, isn't it? It's not just feedback, it's getting timely feedback. That's the most important thing.
Absolutely.
So what's your final tip on building and maintaining relationships? We've talked about making sure we're leveraging technology to share that, making sure we're edutaining, reaching out to contacts and connecting with them regularly, offering help, getting feedback. What would be your final tip, do you think?
I think that it would be, I'm going to add one where it involves socials. So about not ghosting, it's a little line that says, don't post and ghost. So for those people that schedule all the content, out it goes, and they never once go back and reply to people's comments. And it's just like, well, you're not being social on social media. So I think that's such a big part of maintaining those relationships, is that you've got the people to come and follow you. Now, actually, other than just post, actually treat them as part of your community.
I love that. I love that. I think that's so important to actually respond. There's nothing better than when you send an email out and someone replies to you, and then you're like, oh, that's right, I need to reply back now, don't I? Yes. Don't just take that response and be like, oh, I forgot to send you back.
Absolutely. What about you, Jenni? What would be your final tip?
I think for me, building relationships is also making sure we're reaching out to those long-term partners. So recognizing that not all relationships are equal in our business. So whether it's clients or business partners, we have to make sure that we're giving the right amount of contact to that demonstrate the value of those clients. And the reality is there are those who've been with us for 2 or 3 or as long as we've been in business, and those new clients, and they all need a different type of connection. So making sure that when we identify, for a better term, those important contacts or those key clients or connections, that we are meeting them where they're at. So that might be a Zoom call or a coffee or a lunch or just face-to-face, or it might just be email or texting. So utilizing all those different avenues to make sure we're meeting our clients where they're at. I've got a client who we text. Like, we've only just started working together, but I love it because if he needs something, he'll just send me a quick text saying, hey, XYZ, and I'll be like, cool, and we can respond really quickly because he's traveling, I'm traveling, but it means we can maintain connection on a platform and a term that suits him, and he knows I'm always accessible that way. And so it makes it much easier, so I can build and nurture a strong relationship. 10 years ago, if I said to someone, I'm going to text a client, I'd be like, are you kidding me? But now I'm recognizing that's what works for him. And so that's how we need to play. So that's I think my tip is reaching out to your key clients or your customers or your partners in a way that works for them.
I love it, Jenni. I really do. I think one thing that we haven't touched on today, but we could do part 2 of this next week, is around boundaries. So the importance of those great relationships in business, but also then setting really strong and very clear boundaries and how to do that.
I think boundaries are so important, and I've been in business relationships where the boundaries have been crossed either by me or by my client, and how do you pull back from that? How do you actually manage that when not only just setting boundaries, but then actually maintaining and managing those boundaries? And it's a great conversation, particularly when you're talking about business relationships, because we're talking about value exchange, we're talking about money, we're talking about your business success and revenue, and all those things start to complicate things if you don't have those boundaries in place.
Absolutely. Well, I look forward to that next chat with you.
Amazing.
Same time, same place, next week, next Monday. Thanks, Jenni. You have a fabulous week.
Thank you, Kylie. And remember, thank you for tuning in today on our Bite Size Business podcast. Be sure to subscribe and follow us so you don't miss any future episodes, including next week's when we're talking about setting boundaries in our business relationships. Kylie, how do we find you between now and then? How can we see the posts that you're sharing this week?
Jump onto hellomedia.team and you can find all the socials and some great blog posts, if I say so myself. What about you, Jenni? How can we connect with you?
At Elephant in the Room AU, you can find us on our website and Insta, Facebook, LinkedIn. They're our key places that we hang out. But finally, I want to finish on a conversation you said to me at the very start. Remember, people, this is an important week in Australia's history. If you don't know, go find out. Book some time with people, read some blogs, check out what people are saying, and be educated this week before you vote on Saturday.
Oh, I'm so glad you mentioned that. Thank you, Jenni.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great week. Take care.
You too. Look forward to seeing you soon. Bye. Thanks, everyone.